back to our last video on ambiguous loss. In this episode, we will be discussing the 6 resilience strategies that Boss proposes for coping with ambiguous loss.
These 6 strategies include find meaning, adjust mastery, reconstruct identity, normalize ambivalence, revise attachment, and discover new hope.
Those are a lot of great coping mechanisms.
And each one is super easy to implement into many different aspects of our lives.
Should we dive into each of them now?
Yeah, let's start with finding meaning. With all loss, ambiguous or ordinary, we all end up with questions. We naturally strive to find meaning when we do not understand.
Yeah, many times losses end up just being meaningless, but sometimes that's exactly what their meaning is. Sometimes things are just meant to be meaningless.
Yeah, and we can work through situations and cope with them with action. And action can be anything from, working to spread justice, or even just coming together to celebrate and talk about the person that was lost.
Yeah, for sure. My mom's coworker's daughter passed away in a car accident. We actually had a memorial to raise money for her funeral. And although I could not really understand why she was lost, making it an ambiguous loss for me, I was kind of able to make a meaning of her loss by attending this memorial and celebrating her life.
Exactly. It's a way to finally understand and move forward. I also want to emphasize that even though Pauline Boss's quote steps, as she explains these 6 resilience strategies, they don't have to be followed in this exact order. She intends for them to be seen in a circular manner.
Yeah, for sure. So next up is adjust mastery.
Okay, so as a human being, it is natural to strive to hold full control over one's life. That is the idea of mastery. This idea of wanting control over all of your emotions in your life at all times.
Yeah, but to be honest, when it comes to grief and your emotions, this idea of wanting control is so detrimental. Boss says grief is meant to be expressed and lived with, not controlled.
Totally. As much as we want to master and control our grief to overcome a situation, we really shouldn't, and we oftentimes can't.
Definitely. It's important to adjust your mastery and allow yourself to be vulnerable in order to live with loss. It's important to cry and to be sad and to express your feelings.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many times where I just bottle up my emotions and then one day they eventually all just come pouring out because that's always what happens. And it's just instantly I feel so much better after I let it out. No matter how much I wanted to hold it in and be strong or be brave, letting it out is it's so important, and it really helps you get over whatever you're going through.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, in Nepal, during the Maoist insurgency, which is a sort of political conflict in the area, a lot of men from poor families kind of disappeared, and their families were left without explanations. So for the families, the research kind of reflected how they kind of felt like they couldn't express their feelings because they were trying to be strong and hold their family together, but they found ways to express their grief through cultural demonstrations. And if you guys want to learn more about this, the research is linked in the description below.
That is really interesting. I think that in every culture and society, people can't pretend grief doesn't exist. We just have to learn to live with it, and that is adjusting mastery. Okay, so the next concept is reconstructing identity, which is a unique topic because it is often an idea or concept that a lot of people haven't thought of before.
Yeah, and after losing someone, it's hard to let go.
Yeah, basically you have to accept that you will be taking a new role in your life and that it may change many different times.
And many individuals, often in relation to some ambiguous loss, have a title that they associate with a person, like a brother to a sibling or a son to a dad.
Yeah, so if you think about it like this, if you were once a brother to a sibling and you lost that sibling, sometimes it's hard to associate yourself as a brother because you don't have that sibling anymore after a loss. Or let's say you're a mother who lost a child. It's hard to accept yourself as a mother with no child. So it's really emotionally taxing for people who experience this kind of loss. And it's important to reconstruct your identity so that you don't fall into an endless cycle of just constant depression and just ambiguous loss in general.
Yeah, but I don't think this is primarily restricted to the family role either.
Yeah, a lot of caregivers for dementia patients often find themselves lost after their patient at several years passes away, and they're kind of left with no one to care for until the next patient. So it's kind of they feel like they're not really a caregiver anymore because they don't have someone to care for,
So next is normalizing ambivalence, which is the idea of normalizing conflicting thoughts.
Yeah, and it's important to understand that accepting these conflicting thoughts kind of helps us all manage our anxiety, and it ultimately allows each of us to kind of move forward with our lives.
Yeah, you may love a person and be the person affected and want them to be around for a long time. Yeah, at the same time, you want your caregiving or that identity to end.
Yeah, and reaching out to family members and sharing your experience and your personal questions can definitely help.
Yeah, whenever I'm in a tough situation, my go-to people, like whenever I'm guilty, they're always my friends and my family.
Same, my friends always give me the best advice.
Yeah, definitely. But in general, hesitating and not making a difficult choice leads to inaction.
Yeah, I agree. Choices have to be made even though they may not be perfect. Alright, next up is like the fifth strategy, which is revised attachment.
I think that it's pretty fair to say that all of us have an attachment to someone or something. But briefly, the definition of attachment is affection, fondness, or sympathy for someone or something.
And a lot of us feel this for a lot of people in our lives. But if this sense of attachment was kind of taken away from us through death, unforeseen circumstances, or even a breakup, the idea of kind of moving forward really haunts us.
Yeah, it might even feel like betrayal, to move on.
Yeah, and I think Pauline Boss does a really amazing job of summing up this idea. Overall, she mentions that our lives and personalities are simply an accumulation of all the relationships we have over our lifetime.
Yeah, so by letting go of people we lost, but kind of keeping them present in our hearts, in our minds, we can kind of reinvent the sort of attachment that we had to them originally.
We understand that many of our viewers might have a hard time jumping into this concept.
Most Western cultures have a sense of discomfort when suffering, but looking at examples from other cultures may be helpful in understanding the entire concept of revising attachment.
Yeah, the Day of the Dead is an annual Mexican celebration when families gather to honor and remember deceased loved ones.
Yeah, people build altars filled with pictures of their loved ones and memories they had created together.
Rather than lamenting what was lost, the family bonds together and creates community around the life that was. They light candles and share memories over good food, basically celebrating life.
Yeah, creating community really helps, but overall I think this quote from Boss kind of helps it put together. She says, "They are gone, life as it was has changed."
And lastly, we have discover new hope.
Again, I want to emphasize that these concepts should be seen as more of a circular motion and coping than in a linear way of thinking.
Yeah, but a crucial way to spur change in someone's life is through hope.
Yeah, through hope, people can become more motivated to work forward and find a new passion in their lives without the one they lost.
But honestly, sometimes I feel like it's hard to stop lingering in the past.
Definitely.
Yeah, in some ways I think you could stop lingering in the past and move forward, or to brainstorm with others, try new things, and push yourself to branch outside of your boundaries.
And as college students, we're kind of doing that every single day.
Yeah, definitely. As a first year, I've been exposed to so many different opportunities and so many different types of people every day.
Being in Berkeley definitely helps. Plus, we're so close to the city, full of so many new opportunities.
Yeah, and discovering new hope doesn't mean you have to switch your whole career, go from being a doctor to a lawyer, or even find a whole hard internship. It can be something as small as knitting or painting.
Yeah, it just has to be something that changes your perspective and helps you move forward.
And Boss mentions that change only happens when hope comes true.
Yeah, and obviously there's no forgetting the loss people have endured, but the only way to move forward is to stop waiting and to start hoping for something new.
A great way to sum that concept up.
And I think that's all for the 6 strategies of resilience. These strategies can be really helpful in dealing with ambiguous loss. In an article I recently read about ambiguous loss tied to mothers who give birth extremely prematurely, authors Caroline Wilson and Catherine Cook state that these mothers grieved their different mothering trajectories, but also celebrated their children's successes and noted their own resilience. I think that noted their own resilience is really important. Developing resilience not only helps people with ambiguous loss, it also helps develop a sense of accomplishment surrounding the work that they did to overcome it.
And with that concludes our video series.
It's been so great talking, and I hope that you guys all have learned something new and begin to implement these new methods in your lives.
Yeah, and if any of our viewers are interested, additional research and all of our sources are linked in the description down below.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.